Chapter 5 Rhythm and Rain. Welcome back, everyone, to Ballads at Midnight. Hope you're doing fine, guys. Hope you're doing great. Hope you're doing amazing, guys. Let's see what this chapter has to offer for us. The heavens are generous with rain this year. Within a fortnight of my stay, black clouds had begun blotting out the moon. A few days later, we were neck-deep in Illuvia's rainfall season. At first, I was nervous that the moat would overflow and flood the estate. But the weather was wickedly fickle. The rain frequently stopped and began anew like a broken music box. Nonetheless, the ground outside was perpetually muddy. I spent a lot of time indoors. I was reluctant to soil my only boot I owned, and Lucius gave me hell whenever I left dirty footprints in the hall. Tonight, a thick fog hangs like a curtain outside. The windows shake and rattle, straining against the storm. Because I'm disinclined to set foot in violent, dreary weather, I decide this is an optimal opportunity to write a new song. I was surprised to find a number of brushes, parchment and writing quills stowed away in a cupboard, and even more surprised to find an inkwell that hadn't dried out. I recall how the vampire told me he housed an artist once, and tried to picture whether said artist could have single-handedly smuggled in all these materials. He must have been much sneakier than me, or had a lot more pockets. If I were him, I would have prioritized smuggling in some food and weapon instead of art supplies. But I should be grateful to him, in any case. I had made myself a bowl of soup, boiled turnip and mushroom, so I could write without being interrupted by hunger. Lucius' disgusting fish can only tide me for so long. Well, I never had much interest in cooking and often survived on trail rations in the past. I do know how to feed myself in a pinch. Although my soup is only palatable due to some dried herbs, scrounged from the nearby empty pantry. There may be unforeseen perks to living in a vampire castle, but gourmet meals are certainly not one of them. Thankfully, I've never had much interest in the finer things. While my soup cools, I start a small fire to keep myself warm. On the whole, my impromptu little workspace is comfortable. I've always wanted a writing nook, and this may be the closest I'll ever get to having one. Unfortunately, I tap the nib of my quill against the writing desk, glaring at the blank, loose-leaf piece of parchment. Call me a perfectionist, but I refuse to transcribe a song into my journal until I'm certain it's amazing. Besides, I found it more freeing to write when I don't care for the paper I'm using. I scratch out the word before my quill completes the arc of the E. I have everything I need to write, don't I? Now I'm sitting down to do it. My head feels so foggy as the weather outside. Maybe I'm being too hard on myself. Let's try this again. There once was a farmer who... the weight of each word feels hackney and rotten like old apples. I feel like I'm choking on them. I flip the parchment over and feeling miserable with contempt. Stupid blank page. Before long, I find myself leafing backwards through my journal. It doesn't contain much of my original work, honestly. To survive as a traveling bard, I had to memorize and rewrite songs that were already popular, already known. Original work, I quickly learned, was often well received in an unruly tavern. I've been booed, had tomatoes thrown at me, and even have gotten into brawls because someone wanted to hear a song and didn't know how to play. So I had to learn. I had to adapt. I had to make it work. At times I even stole promising lyrics from my peers and rivals. I hated doing it, but I did it anyway. And all for what? Freedom? Coin? Glory? Gods. With so much time to think, I can't help wondering if the life I've led has been worth one living. The vampire was right about maddening silence. It must be well past midnight. Lucius should be here at any minute now. I realized then, while thoughts of his arrival used to fill me with dread, I've recently looked forward to seeing him. We've been surprising each other with how easily the conversation came, how willing we are to talk. I often find myself trying to stay awake to finish the thought, only to be shooed to bed the moment he catches me yawning. As much as it pains me, I just can't get the hang of the night cycles. I've tried because being in his company is far more preferable than being stuck on my own. This leaves me cherishing a few hours we have together each night. Without even realizing it, I flipped through every page of my songs. My hand paused over the inside cover of my journal. I gazed absent-mindedly at the strange runic symbol on the first page, some sort of bejeweled pendant, encircled by a knotted half-wreath of thorns, which was somehow resisted fading no matter how often I touched it over the years. Brushing over the bold red ink, I wonder if I'm imagining the faintly sharp pickle across the pad of my fingers. Below the symbol, written in a hurried, clumsy growl, are the words, "Keep safe." Oh. I once felt at ease for such simple words. Looking at them now only tightens the knot at the pit of my gut. Maybe this is a sign that I just need to move on to bigger and better things, that I've been rooted in the past. I shut the journal. My chair squeals against the floor as I stand up. How do you? That's a better sound. Resting my palms on either side of the blasted book. I could toss it in the fireplace if I wanted to. Here and now. I could break the final chains linking me to my past. Keep safe. Those were her instructions to me. Try as I might, I can't defy them. I gathered the journal in my arms, cradling it against my chest. For a moment I can still feel the blossom of warmth from the words. Keep safe. Going to find Lucius. The silence truly is maddening. I gather my things, striding out into the hall. Only to collide unwittingly into the vampire lurking outside. He catches me by the forearms, taking a step back to keep us balanced, although my journal and supplies stumble on the floor. Lucius!
Abigail!
Lucius released me once he's sure I'm steady, and immediately bends to pick up the mess. No, don't! I seize the journal and hold it away from him. He eyes me with some measure of confusion, but shrugs and picks up the loose parchment instead.
I see you found some old supplies. I'm glad they're getting some use, though I really thought the ink would have dried up by now. What are you writing so far? There was once an old man in a farm?
I snatch documents from him. I won't have you making fun of my first drafts. What are you doing out here?
Apologies, I didn't wish to disturb you. You looked like you were trying to focus.
In vain, perhaps. There was not much to disturb. But you were trying to be considerate, thank you. Lucius nods, dismissive but polite. He doesn't like to acknowledge gratitude.
For you to rush out of the chamber like a bat from a cave, why? Rushing to seek inspiration elsewhere?
No, no. Gods, I can't just admit I wanted to talk to him until I forget my grievance. Isn't it time for a nightly ballad? He watches me through narrow eyes, but favors me in a small smile.
You need not hurry for such a thing. If you wish to ride tonight, you may ride. Come.
What? Wait! Lucius all but pulls me back into the chambers, coaxing me to be seated once again at the writing desk. I scowl at him, drawing my knees to my chest. Lucius, you don't...
Heels off the furniture.
I scowl at him harder, but lower my legs to flatten my heels on the floor. I wanted to write, but I couldn't think of anything.
You also never finished your soup, it's gone cold.
He looks pointedly at my bowel.
You're a terribly slow eater, aren't you? I may yet expire before you finish it.
I'm not a slow eater. I'm a distracted eater. Why? Do you want my soup? Here. I push it towards him. He gently pushes it back.
No, thank you. My taste buds aren't quite what they used to be. A mortal's meal may as well be a mouthful of dust.
That explains your cooking?
Lucius arches up a brow at me.
Forgive me, that wasn't called for.
Have I done something to annoy you?
No, not at all. I I chew my lip. I don't think I want to write anymore. I don't want any more of the soup. I was presumptuous then. I wouldn't go that far. Look, can we just talk for a while? That was what I wanted, actually. He extends his arm, gesturing for me to take the opposite seat of him. I relocate gratefully away from the writing desk, slumping into the cushioned bench.
You have something on your mind?
Yes, no, yes, but I don't want to talk about it.
I understand. Then, what would you like to discuss instead?
Lucius leans forward without his elbows propped on his knees. With the candid way he's staring at me, I almost feel like I can tell him anything. But I'd rather not talk about myself. Not yet.
What do you eat?
I mean, you sustain yourself with blood. You sustain yourself with blood. But if you only get a guest every couple of years, and even then, sometimes you let them go or don't feed on them at all.
I can make do with animal blood. Fish, mostly, as the moat is rich with them.
Oh, that really explains his cooking. That's another thing I've been wondering. If you can't cross the water, how do you get fish?
By using tools like a civilized mammal.
So, a fishing rod? You fish?
Sometimes I use a net, sometimes I use a spear and some rope. I have a very strong throwing arm.
Against my better judgment, I observe his shoulder and upper arms, searching for any hint of bulging muscle under his sleeve. If Lucius noticed me doing it, he keeps it to himself. For that matter, I'm surprised you haven't asked how I intend to ensure your freedom when I... Oh, that's Lucius.
For that matter, I'm surprised you haven't asked how I intend to ensure your freedom when I myself cannot cross the water.
Because I haven't thought about what I'll do when I leave. The thought feels like an anchor in my chest, a heavy reminder of the future. I presumed you'd tell me when it was time?
Of course. I can also tell you early. I will simply throw you across the moat like a javelin.
You wouldn't! He practically crackles as I recall from him.
I wouldn't. There is another way. I will show you in due time.
Oh, then good. He lapses into a hollow silence as my mind wanders back to my troubles, until the vampire starts making a tutting sound at me. He studied my face with intent, and I realized too late that my pleasantly neutral facade had some point fallen into a frown.
You're in low spirits tonight, Abigail. Is the weather bringing you down? How else can I help you? I suppose I could try telling you a joke, but I only know one. And... no, I shouldn't. I will refrain. It's quite filthy.
That piques my interest. I don't mind dirty jokes. I spent a lot of time in taverns, you know. I'm almost certain I've heard them all.
No, Abigail, you don't understand. This is not meant for polite company.
You don't need to be... You don't need to be polite company all the time, do we? We can be a little impolite.
It's not a little impolite, it's unforgivingly dirty.
Please, Lucius?
Very well. You can't say I didn't warn you. It is not too late to change your mind.
Lucian, you're killing me! Do you want me to beg? I don't think I can go on without hearing it. His laugh is a low rumble in his chest, and he still makes me wait several seconds before he finally delivers the dirty joke.
A white horse falls in waist-deep mud.
That's it? That's the dirtiest joke, you know? Wait a minute! He tricked me. He played me for a fool. Oh, I should have been furious with him, but indignant laughter is already bubbling from between my lips. What? How dare you? It's not even funny. You're the worst. My laughter ripples into a snort, and I know it's futile to try to contain it. Lucius smiles at me all the time, incorrigibly satisfied. Gods, I hate vampires.
I had a similar reaction when I first heard the joke. It pleases me to do it some justice.
You? You burst out laughing?
I don't remember my exact reaction, it was a long time ago.
Well, do you remember who taught you the joke?
A former guest, Gillian.
Lucius' face softens, and my laughter stops like a clogged drain. There's its sadness again. He didn't try to barter with the joke, did he?
Oh god, can you imagine? No. This was before I began bartering with people. A darker time.
Were your dark times lifted with a joke about a white horse? Lucius smiles at me wryly.
Would you like me to tell you about him?
I'm surprised at myself when the words spill out from my mouth. Not if it troubles you. I mean, if you wish to tell me, I will listen. Lucian hesitates, tapping on his collarbone until he musters the initiative to speak.
When I was first exiled into this estate, 300 years ago, there truly was no escape. I frequently fought with the desperate men and women who were sent here. They feared me even when I showed them kindness and reason, and made a point to attack me when I at least expected it.
My spine stiffens. That frightened, desperate outlook sounds grimly similar to my own, back when I first arrived. You had no choice but to defend yourself?
I did try other methods in hope to coexist, of earning their trust. But yes, they tended to turn on me regardless. They often resulted in a fight to the death. Their death at my hands. I never could resist untying them. I felt a certain kinship for them. I suppose before it was inevitably dashed. It was never difficult to overpower them, they were mere humans. And I was an immortal being. I was becoming more powerful with age as well. Until one day, when I was careless, I had subdued an intruder and left her at the brink of death. Unbeknownst to me, conditions were ripe for her to turn. As a vampire spawn, she was vicious. Her anger overpowered my compulsion I had over her, and she managed to run me through. In the same moment, I ripped out her throat.
Lucius' hands hover over his chest, where his wound must have been.
I was alive, but I was pinned down, paralyzed in place. I was lucky to have fallen in the shadows near my coffin. The vampire spawn was not so lucky. She was well and truly dead. And so began the decompose. Though those claws remained embedded in my chest as parting gift. I was perpetually awake, but I could not move. I must have laid there for nearly 2 years. Oh my god,
Lucius, I'm so sorry.
You run into a lot of strife when you become as old as I have. It is not unusual.
Yes, but it must have been harrowing.
Mostly I was just bored. Oh my god, guys, that was crazy. Oh my god, you fought with a very good friend. I mean, it was not a friend, but a vampire spawn, and then they attacked each other, and they were lying dead and partially dead next to each other for 2 years. Oh my god.
He's being aloof, but his hand is massaging his chest right above his heart. I assume he doesn't want to show weakness.
Gillian was the one who found me there. He gave me a wide berth at first, approached only to use the vampire spawn claw to cut his bond before jumping away. Comically, really. But then I was practically a husk. I could sense him, but I could not move and I could not speak. I could sense him coming and going each night, wandering the estate, much like you've been doing. After some time, he returned to my side and took the claw out from my chest.
The claw immobilized him. He what? I knew the story must have been leading there, but I was still a bit of a shock. Why on earth would someone release a petrified vampire? He must have been incredibly kind. He must have been incredibly... Let's say kind. We're not going to embarrass this guy. He must have been incredibly kind. I suppose he felt some sort of kinship for you. You were both trapped.
He certainly was kind. Much too kind, I think.
Lucian chuckles quietly.
He was the one who drew that portrait, the scrap you found. We burned wood together to make charcoal, and he made all kinds of artwork during this stay. I destroyed much of his work when I lost him, and I regret allowing my emotions get in the way of reason. It wasn't just fair the way he convinced me to have compassion for others. The way his gentle nature allowed us to gather a motley little group. It wasn't fair the way he... This little group of guests I had. They're the ones who figured out a way to escape this blasted estate. I encouraged Gillian to go with them, but he wanted to stay behind. He wanted to stay with me. Which meant, of course, that my very next guest was a cruel one. I awoke to the intruder riffling through my things while Gillian bled out in the courtyard.
Oh no.
Death is a fate all mortals share. I know it all too well. But it shouldn't have been his time.
As I let the story sink in, my next words are quietly careful. Did you kill this murderer?
Ruthlessly. But it gave me no satisfaction. My...
Lucius heaved and heavy shuddering breath.
Gillian was still gone. And I was alone again. And I had no one else to blame.
You were in love with him, weren't you? Do you wish him to be... Do you wish you turned him? Do you wish you turned him?
Sometimes. However, he was worried about losing his free will. I told him about how the vampire spawn was able to resist my command. She had lucid speech and seemed to retain her mind just fine, despite her adamantly murderous intent. But he was fully against the idea of becoming a vampire. He treasured his humanity too dearly. A fitting mindset for an artist, perhaps. It was sometime after that I began bartering with my guests. Immediately offering them freedom made them cagey. They suspected me of foul play, of being up to something. It was as if they needed to pay a price for the freedom. It helped them feel at ease. In control, I would say. It helped them to make sense of...
Lucian gestures to himself. I remember the scuffle we had when I first arrived. The way he disarmed me, but otherwise kept in his distance. The way he prowled around and said those menacing things.
You had to play the part people expected of you.
I know. That's her. You had to play the part people expected of you.
It is exhausting, I must say, but they fear me more if I don't. And of course, bartering does not come from a place of pure altruism. It gives me something to look forward to, alleviates my apprehension of what the guests will have in store. When one finds himself acting as the Queen's personal executioner, the odds are high that someone of the people she sent will be dangerous. Though, occasionally, I will receive someone kind enough to offer a listening ear.
Like Gillian.
Like you.
I blink at him, bewildered.
Gillian was kind, but he was notoriously bad listener. He would have interrupted me 10 times just then. Usually some absurd tangent about how he thought snails were effervescent. What I mean to say, thank you for listening to my sad old tale about a lost love. I've never told it to anyone before.
Can I ask you one more question?
Of course, anything.
Something about the last words make my stomach flutter. No, I must be hungry. I grab my deserted bowl and sip at the cold soup. If Gillian was such a good man, what did he do to get sent here? What was his crime?
Lucius outright grins at this question. He edges a little closer to me as if he wishes to rope me in a conspiracy. Supposedly, he painted an unflattering portrait of a nobleman's daughter.
What? That's it?
Yes, and Gillian couldn't help it. He was both an architect and a prestigious painter. lauded for his accuracy and attention to detail. To willfully make the girl more beautiful than she was, well, it would have been a lie, and it would have retarnished his good name. The daughter's betrothed took one look at the portrait and cancelled their arrangement, leaving the nobleman high and dry with an unwed daughter. The nobleman needed some time. The nobleman needed someone to take the fall and convince the crown to send Gillian here. But it wasn't Gillian's fault the man had an ugly daughter.
I collapse my hand over my mouth. My giggles are punctuated only by the sound of crackling fire. I hadn't anticipated that Lucian would make me laugh more than once, let alone show such vulnerability tonight. And it's so odd. It sounds like the artist was punished for revealing the truth. Even if it wasn't entirely his intent to do so, in a way I suppose I swivel my lute into my lap and gaze down at it. It's awash in glowing firelight. I think I'm ready to tell you what I did, Lucius. He straightens, immediately at attention.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you've kept me waiting for long. I didn't expect... Hold on, just a moment. I need a drink. Shall I fetch you a glass as well?
I think it will be nice to keep my throat from going dry, yes. What do you have on the menu?
Wine.
You have wine? Where? Since when? I mean, sure, if you don't mind sharing. Lucius shoots me a mysterious, winning grin before he stalks off into the halls. Where does he hide those things? Ever so often, Lucius will present me with some new object or tool from God knows where. Just earlier this week, he fetched me a ladder to climb the ledge when I complained about running out of the bathing water. Once I climbed up, he made me promise not to attempt to perilously journey of swimming across the moat, and then handed me a bucket and told me to take all the water I needed. I could swear I've walked through every hall and peeked in every room. Not once have I ever seen a ladder or bucket until he materialized them into existence. Maybe he knows creation spells, conjuration magic. Vampire who knows magic. That'll be the day. Lucius returns as I amuse over the idea, presenting me with my promised glass. Deep red wine sloshed gently within, glistering like black opal in the room's low light.
I would have brought you an entire barrel, but wine is hard to come by around these parts. Better be frugal with it.
You can carry an entire barrel?
I told you I have strong arm. When I first arrived, I even hauled my coffin up all these flight of stairs. Admittedly, I was exhausting, but I was strong enough to do it. But I don't have unlimited stamina, of course.
And why were you hauling your coffin upstairs? You wanted to be closer to the sky?
You know me so well already.
Lucius returns to his seat and crossed his legs, slipping his wine and peering at me over the rim. He looks very at ease indeed. At ease and powerful. I take a slow gulp of my own wine. It's sweeter than I expected, with an undertone of currant of plums. Well, hang on. If you're so strong, how was I able to escape from you? I yanked myself free when I first arrived.
That sounds dangerously close to a complaint, Abigail.
I'm just curious.
I don't begrudge you for it, but surely you've realized by now that I'm very disciplined, and I have incredible self-control. I released you because I have no desire to restrain you. You were acting like a street cat who didn't want to be held. I do not wish to be scratched.
Gee, thanks. Disciplined, incredible self-control. You're full of praise of yourself tonight, Lucius.
I am serious. These attributes of my character ensure that I would never bring harm to you. Not unless you ask me over it.
I cough into my wine. What is that supposed to mean?
Do you need water?
No, I'm fine. Can you hear how fast my heart is beating? I pluck absent-mindedly at my lute string, still uncertain if I'm ready to reveal the part of myself I'd rather forgot. But he's been vulnerable with me. It's only fair that I'd be vulnerable with him too in turn. And there's no time like present. I should start with some context. Before you I told you before that I grew up here in Alluvia. I neglected to mention that I was an orphan. Nightingale Garden Home for Girls. His lips just barely twitched, as if he recognized the name. I wouldn't be surprised if so. It's a very old, long-established institution. One of his previous guests might have mentioned it, or grew up there like me. Everyone told me it was an invaluable place to be, especially the Martins, who were always so proud to work there. They told me girls would go as far as to murder their own parents in hopes of being sent to Nightingale Gardens. I've never heard of actually happening, but that was the prevailing attitude. Because the girls of this orphanage were graduated, because the orphanage were guaranteed to have a place in high society, we were educated vigorously of matter of court, history, handwriting, sewing, and entertaining. Once every several dozen years, the best of the brightest girls was chosen to become Alluvian's next queen. Did they have the tradition when you were human, Lucius?
Yes. I believe I heard something about it in passing, but it was a long time ago.
Well, the tradition was in full swing when I was younger. The last queen was growing old and infirm, and there were talks that the new queen would be chosen soon.
How fortunate for you, yes? You could have been chosen.
No, I hated there. I was suffering and I was stuffy and full of promptuous snobs. The Martins had our entire lives planned for us, without once stopping to ask what we wanted to do. And I had the nerve to act like I should keep my mouth shut and be grateful. The other girls seemed content with their lot, which meant they didn't understand how I felt. They kept me at arm's length. I hated the pressure to succeed, and I got into a lot of trouble, even back then. I never would have been in line for the throne. The closest person I had to a friend was the older girl named Ophelia. She was in line of the throne. We all know she would be chosen, too, because she was just perfect. She was beautiful, graceful, and always seemed to stay on the right thing. Always seemed to say the right things. Always. She was always talking about change she'd like to make and the way she'd like to improve her kingdom.
She does sound very lovely indeed. But Abigail, forgive me for saying this. No one is perfect. Surely your Ophelia is no exempt.
He looks a little surprised when I start laughing. You're right, you're absolutely right. Ophelia was God-forsaking rascal. She'd lie through her teeth with that smile, and no one was any wiser. That she let me see her naughty, convincing side. I felt special, you know. And she truly did want to make things better. She was as clever and sharp as a knife. But she did care about people around her. At least, that's what I believed.
More wine?
Yes, please. I drink deeply from my refilled wine before continuing. So Ophelia was chosen and packed her bags. She promised me, up and down, that she would write me every day, every single day. I knew it was forbidden for Alluvia Crown to contact the world outside. We both knew that. Every queen was meant to cut all ties with everyone she ever knew before she was chosen. That was the rule. But I believed her, you know. She was so much smarter than me and so crafty, I really thought she'd find a way. I pat the cover of my songwriting journal, which I had placed at my side. I always try to keep it near, even when it pains me. But all she ever sent me was this book, with its empty pages, and a hurried little note on the inside cover. I thought she was encouraging me to write my songs in it, and it made me so happy for a time, but I never heard from her again. Lucius is watching me with his full attention. I can't stop now. So what else could I do? I begged the matrons to grant me a position in the castle. I begged them day and night. All I wanted to do was see Ophelia again. Until finally, they snapped at me and told me to stop asking. They told me they barely managed to secure a position for me at a court entertainer in a faraway land, and that I needed to be grateful. But I wasn't grateful. I argued with them until they took me by ear and showed me what for. I'll never forget it. How they told me to grow up and stop being childish while they ranked me across the back. Apparently my destination had no complaints about women being whipping scars.
Abigail.
I ran away after that. with just the clothes I wore and, honestly, the very things I have with me now. The loot they gave me, the songwriting journal from Ophelia, and a handful of coins. Lucius spoke slowly, reluctant to interject but unable to contain his curiosity.
So your crime, you say, was running away from this wretched orphanage?
Oh no, not at all. I gave them the slip. His shoulders sagged with relief. I wager he feels some kinship with the little girl I was once. I went on to become a traveling vagabond for many years. I performed everywhere I could, and I saw the world. It was difficult in its own way. People distrusted a new face, and meaningful connections were hard to come by. I was even accused of witchcraft sometimes for some reason. Something about corrupting their women and stealing their men with siren songs. Some days were freeing and exciting back then, while other days made me feel like a ghost in search of final resting place. But no matter what I did or where I spent, I just couldn't stop thinking about Ophelia.
Did you have feelings for this Ophelia of yours?
God, Lucius, she was practically an adult, and I was 6. Which means yes, I was absolutely obsessed with her. Not that she ever seemed to fancy anyone. I'd ask her, if she found some boy or girl attractive. She had this way of wrinkling her nose as she turned down every single one.
Like you?
I gawk at him.
I notice you wrinkle your nose sometimes when you find something disagreeable. Were you not aware?
My face suddenly feels rather hot. Anyway, well, you know how young girls idolize older women?
I do.
Yeah, Wait, you do?
Yeah. I had a younger sister once. We never had the chance to grow close, but I knew they were eager to idolize.
That's news to me. I start to ask him about it, but he holds up a hand to stop me.
Please, continue on with your tale. I apologize for the interrupt.
He grimaces suddenly, and my brows knit with concern. It's not the first time I've seen that expression.
Lucius? Are you okay?
The voice acting's back.
I'm fine. The coffin.
He flinches as he takes a deep breath.
I'll be fine for a while longer. It just calls to me sometimes.
Nice!
If you need to go back early...
Lucius slams his fist on the arm of his seat. His wine jolts slightly in his other hand.
No, I'll not let it squander what little time I have away from it. Forgive me, please. Continue.
I tap my finger against the cover of my journal, feeling a little agitated but wanting to gratify his wishes. He'll get upset if I speed through the story, but I try to shorten it for him.
Even from distant kingdoms, I would hear terrible gossip about Alluvia's young queen. Apparently, she did nothing to better anyone's life but her own.
Oh!
She kept our cruelest traditions intact, torturing and slaughtering people in droves. Most notably, she kept the tradition of sacrificing people to the crown's pet vampire. No offense.
None taken. Inspiring such unease in its people helps the monarchy stay in power. Fear of punishment, I always heard, is a better motivator than acts of love.
It's a shame.
But Ophelia was supposed to be different, and the people were unhappy. There were talks of a revolt. Although I wasn't the most talented bard in the lands, I was starting to get some renown and make strong connections. I can still scarcely believe it, but I managed to get an audience with Queen Ophelia. I was meant to perform for her.
Lucius' eyes slowly went wide with realization.
You didn't.
Maybe, kind of, definitely spoke my mind in front of the queen and her entire court. But I did it through song.
You didn't.
Lucius is torn perfectly between horrified and scandalous amusement, clapping his hand over his jaw with disbelief.
I did. Do you want to hear the song?
He gestures We're enthusiastically erratic now. He waves for me to go on and can hardly sit still as he pounces himself with some more wine. As for me, I set my glass down and clear my throat.
Queens, queens, they rule in the light, remembering tales of their kingdoms. Those lands may now be out of sight, but you can still remember your stratagem. Be vain, be cruel, be always right, proud until unproven. Show your cruel self till the end of night, when you'll be slain at day's conclusion.
It was a good one. Oh, when Lucius applauded me, it's a gradual as it resonates. The very furniture around us seems to shudder in response.
Gods!
That was a more subdued version. Back in chord, I was screaming the lyrics at the top of my lungs.
I only wish I could have seen it for myself. You must have been radiant.
Lucius looks at me with plain, unmistakable admiration. I feel my cheeks growing warm again. But I tell myself it's just the wine.
I always knew Alluvia was full of busybody moralists. To think they'd punish you so gravely for such a thing. Simply ungrateful.
Oh, I don't know about gravely. I think I like it here.
Oh, she said it!
And I like having you here.
Finally! Our eyes meet with slow yet abrupt understanding of each other. We're so alike in so many ways, I can hardly believe it. The storm had stopped at some point. It's quiet enough that I can hear his breath, steady and strong even from this distance. And then he grimaces again. I pivot in time to see the sky, now clear of blackouts, shifting into first dusky hints of daybreak. Lucius!
Yes. Yes, I'm going. No need to rush me. You may have the rest of the wine if you please.
He smiles at me one last time, strained and fleeting before he turns into mist and disappears into the shadow. I'll see you tomorrow night, Lucius. I know I'm speaking to an empty room. I know it all too well, but I already miss him. I like it. I can't wait to see the 6th episode. I can't wait. Okay, guys, that's for the next episode. Thank you very much for watching. I think this was a cute story. Very nice. A lot of heart-warming moments, and they open to each other. Oh, it's so good to see. I wonder if they come attracted to each other or not. We'll see next episode. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, drop a comment down below, and I will see you next episode. Have a great day, everyone.